The world is being massified through the use of biopower. Now, what does that all mean? Foucault identified that the seizure of power and the grasping of power changes as time goes on. The methods by which power can be maintained and harvested change and develop through the unravelling of human knowledge. The more we come to learn about humanity, the more we come to understand about the plasticity of the human condition. For example, the transition from the various European monarchs into a scientific state apparatus changed the power dynamic of society, changed the technology of power and how it is ordered. To be more specific, when industrialization began, it produced a new form of biopower. It disciplined people, it disciplined their bodies and their biology through a set of strict rules and drills. In other words, it produced something called disciplinary power through the building of more and more societal disciplinary institutions that would teach the public what is right and what must be done. Foucault, in a sense, prophesied the future of power, the new technology of power, and how it would be used for human acquiescence. Thus, biopower is a method of power to manage human beings in large groups, to control entire populations through the human body by creating a politic of the human body through the use of biopolitics that is to be then distributed and consumed via the words of societal disciplinary institutions in which we so often digest as speakers of truth. Foucault identified early on that the formation of a population state that was to be governed by a scientific apparatus as its leading doctrine would not only create a certain type of state, but a governing entity or government that would be less active in governance than ever before, that it would instead concentrate and focus only on the administrating of external devices. We could apply this to the modern day through the uptake of something like vaccines, the uptake of vaccine passports, the uptake of QR codes, the uptake of things that will propagate the hive mind state of control. With this all being done through biopolitics and propagated through the societal institutions of discipline, this in essence acts as the new technology of power, power based on biology. Quote, "The basic biological features of the human species became the object of a political strategy." Another quote from Foucault says, "An explosion of numerous and diverse techniques for achieving the subjugation of bodies and the control of populations." End quote. Thus, biopower can be further seen in the regulation of social life through the regulation of your own biology, of course. Masks, distancing, surveillance, track and trace, continuous lockdowns, so-called illegal gatherings, etc. These mandates of law have only been achieved through the attainment of biopower, which then leads to the infusion of maybe something you could call psychopower, which is the outcome of conditioning and fear, such as self-censorship and self-policing in relation to the biopolitics in which have been internalized from within yourself, which is when the mind, in some sense, through conditioning from an external source, is hijacked to a system that is not your own, which then eventually leads to the creation of a collective hive mind, which attaches, controls, and asphyxiates every single person into a new collective unconscious for humanity. A psychological system that sits heavily within the atmosphere of society, which most are too well conditioned to go against or realize. Biopower, biopolitics, biocapital, biosecurity, everything related to the attainment of power through biology is something we could biblically relate to or refer to as the number of the beast, because it is an attachment to the body and human biology that overcomes your own personal sovereignty, that is understood through your own body and mind. So that ultimately no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, the name of the beast or the number of its name. Thus you could say in a biblical sense that biopower is the power in which the Antichrist energy uses to inflict its mark upon you, for it takes away the rights given to you from birth by God through the subordination and the lowering of your spirit, which imprisons the soul to then be replaced by the hive mind consciousness in which it creates, which can be none other than the synthetic matrix and world of a social credit system. Biological life then becomes a deliberate political strategy for power, but also an economic and scientific problem in which is never fulfilled. Anatomical politics of the human body and biopolitics of the population through societal disciplinary institutions replace the true meaning of what government is and used to resemble. Thus, in its existence, it will be glazed as a liberal democracy, you could say. When you are used to the injections through boosters, we can then start making and normalizing the pills for it too. When you are used to digital transactions, we can continue to introduce new technologies that over time remove the slight technological deficiencies that restrict the desire for laziness and numbing comfort, so that we can slowly use technological advantage as a positive decoy for the attainment of even more biopower. And the end game of this, well, none other than a self-contained, self-processing and self-fulfilling system of power that needs near to nothing of governmental regulation because it removes the government itself, the governless government, the social credit system. Through this, the government adopts a scientific apparatus or power structure that passively takes over their duties without any public announcement or awareness by the mass majority. This is the creation of a matrix, a synthetic world of duties without free choice of opting in or opting out of them. For those who often ask, do we live in a simulation? Do we live in a matrix? Social credit systems are and always will be the most obvious form of living matrix accepted in society. And yes, I said accepted. For the idiots that ask this question, they are in themselves the most blind to see what is coming because they don't even realize that their own daily actions give answers to the questions that they ask the most. Because most people don't realize that what you do matters on the individual level. What you do and accept into your life empowers a particular narrative for the future. Thus, people must always be vigilant to read in between the lines of all things that are promoted to the mass majority of society. If you enjoyed this video and wish to support the channel, you can by becoming a member of the Thoughts on Thinking community, which in return will give you access to our ever-growing library of exclusive video content. More information can be found on my website or through our Patreon servers. All links can be found in the description below. Thank you.